All right. Good afternoon, good morning to all of those that have joined. Today, we're going to be talking about licensing clarity and how to accelerate your Oracle migrations with AWS OLAs. And we'll get started. So, the agenda for today is why change? Why look at migrating our Oracle workloads into AWS? What are the business drivers? What do we do? What does Apps Associates do? What's our method? How do we help customers with this migration adoption? Oracle license assessments. How do we help customers with those assessments? Storage assessments. What are other things that we need to look at if we're going to consider migrating Oracle and enterprise workloads into AWS? What's the partner value add? Apps Associates plus AWS, and then next steps for migration path. So on that note, my name is Mahir Patel. I'm the VP of Cloud Infrastructure here at Apps Associates. I've been doing Oracle licensing and Oracle Cloud migrations for about 15 years. Yep, 15 years. Apps Associates was the first Oracle competency partner back in 2012. And we've been helping customers ever since then migrate their Oracle Enterprise workloads into AWS. And I'm joined today by Jim, my friend from AWS. Jim.
Hey, Mahir, thanks. So Jim White, I lead go-to-market for FSx for NetApp ONTAP here at AWS. I've been here about 5 years. Had the privilege to launch this service, which we'll talk more about later in the presentation. But longtime storage guy, been in the industry for a couple of decades, and it's been interesting to see kind of the evolution of storage, especially as we talk about advances in the cloud. And we're excited about the possibilities with FSx for NetApp ONTAP. It turns out it's our fastest growing storage service here at AWS. We're really pleased with that, and we're going to talk today about the importance of this particular storage service as it relates to Oracle databases. So back to you, Mahir.
Thank you, Jim. So what are the business challenges customers are facing today? They're dealing with outdated on-premise infrastructure, whether it be Exadatas that are coming end of lives that are 5 years past their ship dates, or VMware infrastructures with Oracle workloads on them, et cetera, et cetera. It's just becoming taxing managing and maintaining data centers. So what are customers doing? They're migrating those workloads into public cloud architectures, right? But one of the first hurdles or first questions they always ask us is, how is this going to affect my Oracle licensing? Obviously, there's other VMware or Microsoft or whatnot, and we'll talk about those later. But for today, we're going to be speaking specifically about Oracle. So Oracle licensing varies on-prem versus the cloud. So we're going to talk about that. And they're seeing annual increases in their support, license update and support bills of 5, 8, in some cases 10%, right? So it's prohibiting them from moving. And we'll talk about different ways that we can unlock that value and moving it to AWS. So for our customers that run Oracle databases and ERP applications, we've seen a considerable cost reduction in savings by moving their Oracle estate into AWS, whether it be RDS, EC2, Oracle DB at AWS, et cetera. We've been able to extract tremendous savings leveraging AWS's platform as a whole and different services within AWS to save the customer entire total cost of ownership as it relates to this workload. So how do we do that? Where do we start? We want to exit the data center. We want to look at modernizing some of these Oracle applications, e-business suite, PeopleSoft, JDE, et cetera. AWS has a wonderful program called the 1OLA program. It's the Optimization and License Assessment Program. It allows us as a certified partner from this program to be able to look at your Oracle, your Microsoft, storage, cloud to cloud, VMware. We can look at your entire estate, regardless of where you're running enterprise workloads, and help you evaluate what the best path is to migrate those workloads into AWS. So two elements of this 1OLA program we're going to deep dive a little bit more into is the Oracle bubble and the storage bubble. So the assessment to optimize licenses is really built on leveraging your cloud capabilities. Why are customers moving? It's take advantage of the ability to right size their resources. No longer do I have to buy servers that are larger than the workload demands, or pre-buying extra storage than I need. You know, putting it in our data centers, et cetera. We can literally right size it and scale as we grow. It's going to be secure. It's going to be optimized, and it works. We have customers that are running their enterprise Oracle workloads 100% on AWS, and basically having even better resiliency, RPO, RTO, HA architectures with the same license sets that they had, but having a uh, much better business continuity plan as a result of it. So we want to look at it and get a accurate total cost of ownership. How do we do that? We use the OLA. We'll perform a detailed cost assessment of what do we own? What Oracle assets do we own? How do we map those to the appropriate AWS services? And what will that cost us? We'll map all of that out. We'll identify any risks and help mitigate those. If there are options and packs that you're not using, that you have, do you really need Enterprise Edition? Can you do with Standard Edition? Things like that. We'll optimize those and help you rationalize your entire Oracle estate. And we'll move that to AWS and build you a resilient and secure infrastructure to operate and maintain that Oracle data in AWS. So what does that migration framework look like, right? We'll do a discovery and assess. We'll send you tools that we have that will assess your CPU, memory, storage details. We'll do an assessment on it. We'll look at your license entitlements. You'll send us your license entitlements. We'll look at that, and then we'll optimize and design that into the appropriate AWS service ecosystem, EC2, RDS, et cetera. We'll do that to optimize not only your cost going forward, but also to optimize the licenses, right? So once we know which services within the entire portfolio of AWS services we're going to employ for those particular workloads, we'll map it, we'll figure out the cost, and show you how to migrate and modernize those applications into AWS. In some cases, customers want to do a proof of concept. In some cases, you may not want to do that. It's just due to a time delay, et cetera. And in those cases, we have numerous references where we've migrated large enterprise workloads due to data center exit dates, old and aging hardware, numerous reasons where customers are like, yeah, no proof of concept, just take us. And we've had tremendous success with that. So we'll then migrate and modernize that, right? We'll perform a production cutover with minimal downtime, looking at every single application and database workloads that you may have, and we'll determine the appropriate way to migrate it over into AWS. After it's there, we can help maintain it, manage, and improve it, and then always look to optimize and even further modernize those Oracle workloads in AWS for you. So we'll look at continual cost optimization with well-architected review. We will always ensure that your costs and things are continually optimized within AWS after we've migrated you there. So what are the challenges in migrating to cloud? So what are the key business challenges? A lot of times customers don't have a clear inventory of what Oracle product licenses are currently used and deployed in their ecosystem. So we'll start with that understanding and getting that data from your environment through our tool sets. And that way you'll have the certainty. These are the database options, packs, et cetera, we're using. Are all of our existing licenses being used? Are we over provisioned because I bought a bigger box and therefore I had to buy additional Oracle licenses to fit that Oracle, wherever that Oracle software was going to be installed and or running. So we'll optimize that. We'll look at the cost. What will it cost to run those workloads on AWS? A lot of times customers are like, yeah, it's going to be expensive if I move it to AWS versus just leaving it on-prem, right? Maybe, but what's the cost of not being, overspending on those Oracle licenses, that hardware, and not having the HA resiliency, ability to spin up capacity as and when you need it, and controlling those licenses within AWS through AWS License Manager service. So there are other hidden costs versus just keeping it on a physical infrastructure that we can help guide you through. We'll work on a migration sequence, right? Which workload should move first for the best ROI, right? Should I start with my class 1 systems that are mission critical and move those first? Should I move my class 4 systems that, if it's down for a couple of days, nobody's going to miss it, but it's still important. But where do we start? What are the dependencies between these different applications? How do we approach that? Through the assess phase, we'll help you determine that right path. A lot of times we don't have the right skills and expertise to execute a migration effectively. So we'll partner with AWS and you to ensure you're getting the right level of training, resources, etc. If you want to run and maintain this yourself. If you don't, you can just say, take me out of the data center business, apps associates, please manage this. Absolutely, we'll graciously accept that privilege of supporting that database workload and applications workload in AWS on your behalf through our managed services program. So we are an AWS managed services provider, so we can absolutely help you with that as well. What are some technical challenges that customers face, right? So the database license we use, what licenses can be leveraged in AWS? Can I take my existing licenses and port them to AWS? 99% of the time, yes, you can. What is that 1%? Well, it depends on your ULA contracts, things like that, unlimited license agreements. We'll get into that in a little bit. So we'll look at those. We'll look at usage optimization. How to identify underutilized licenses for cost savings, right? So there might be licenses where we don't even need Enterprise Edition, but we just put it in because that was the installer that the DBAs had at the time. But we're not using any of the capabilities of Enterprise Edition. Maybe we just need a standard edition. I can just run it in an RDS environment. That's fine too. So which workloads are candidates for license takeout? Well, in some cases, do you even need to run this on an Oracle database? Maybe not. And we can evaluate that. We want to ensure your licenses are mapped accurately as you move it into AWS. And then we always do a storage assessment because those Oracle databases that are mission critical, that are running your data warehouses or your ERP systems, we want to make sure that this underlying storage infrastructure that's supporting those databases are just as performant and resilient as the compute infrastructure that we're deploying those assets on. So what are the 4 steps in the OLA process? So let's dig deep into that optimization license assessment process. We do a data collection. We have various different discovery tools that we'll use to gather Oracle usage data, details on the servers, the VMs, if you're running a VMware or other virtualized infrastructure environment. What are the operating system types, the CPU, RAM, storage? What are the performance details, AWR data? If you have diagnostic pack licenses, right, we'll run AWR miner to be able to look at it from all the various different vantage points. We'll take that Oracle usage inventory and profile and the storage utilization report, and we'll perform deep analytics on it to determine, what is the right target infrastructure in AWS. EC2, is it a memory optimized, storage optimized X, right? There's so many different EC2 instance types that we can pick from. We're going to base that selection on the data that we collected in step 1, and then we'll map that to the licenses that you own. We'll create a results deck that will clearly articulate to you our findings. Why are we suggesting what we are suggesting? Why did you pick this instance type versus that? Why are you suggesting we do this and move it into RDS? Or why are you guys suggesting this and this? It'll be based on your business requirements. What are your RPOs, RTOs, backup, data retention requirements, etc. We'll collect that as a part of the data collection process, and we'll present all of the information back to you in a results deck, right? All of that to help you make a directional business case in terms of, does this make sense for us to move into AWS? And if so, how would we do it? We will give you a high level flight plan of, this is what, based on the data that you guys have shared with us, this is the approach we would take to migrate this. And if you want, we can double click into other various AWS programs that we can leverage to accelerate that migration modernization into AWS. So that's all great, but I still have concerns here about licensing and, is this stuff really going to work, right? Can I really run Oracle in AWS and stay compliant? These are the key questions that customers still ask us today after 15 years of running Oracle on AWS. So let's go through them. Can I run Oracle and stay compliant? Will Oracle provide support if I run it on AWS? Are companies worldwide using Oracle on AWS? Am I going to be the first ones? Can I build a roadmap to leverage different cloud services once I move into AWS? How can I plan my future estate with the 6 Rs, right? Should I just, re-platform right now, etc.? Then number 6, it's going to be 2x more expensive if I run all my Oracle stuff on AWS. Let's dig a little bit deeper into each one of these. So number 1, can I run Oracle on AWS and stay compliant? Absolutely. To date, we have never had Oracle support once ask us, can prove to me that this will work on a physical hardware, and otherwise we can't support you because you're on AWS. Never happened. Customers have all been supported, mission critical workloads, their Oracle ERP, Z Business Suite, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, you name it, Oracle applications, Oracle database, middleware, whatever we've put on AWS, Oracle's always supported us. Will Oracle provide support on AWS? Yeah. Oracle supports customers running Oracle on AWS as long as we make sure that we're using the right certification matrix on Linux operating system, etc. At the end of the day, these are x86 architectures that we're running this stuff on. As long as it's an Oracle certified combination with the right operating system and whatnot, Oracle's always supported us with any issues we run into. Have other large enterprise companies done this? Have they run Oracle on AWS? Absolutely. One of the first customers that we've done, they're publicly referenceable on our website, is Pearson. They were one of our first FSxN NetApp ONTAP customers as well. And they're running their enterprise workloads on AWS. And there's numerous others. So you would not be the first. And they went through an OLA process, a similar process that we've articulated here. So can I build a roadmap to leverage other cloud services? Yeah, AWS has 15,000 services, maybe more, that we can tap into once we migrate our data into AWS. We can use Redshift, Bedrock for better data and analytics. Whatever we can think of, we can literally build now because we have access to all of those different service capabilities on AWS. What should I do? Should I just re-platform? Should I just rehost this thing? Should I refactor? Should I just retire these workloads that we're talking about? We can walk through each one of them through the OLA assessment and help you determine the best path forward for you on AWS. And number 6, Oracle's 2x more expensive on AWS. Nope, not true. I think in 15 years, there's probably been one customer that was on an AIX platform that had like an LPAR architecture with really, really, really small CPU and lots and lots and lots of memory. So they had a bunch of databases, but they weren't really CPU bound. They were memory bound. Other than that, uh, it's never been an issue running Oracle and paying 2x on AWS. 99% of the customers, 99.9% of the customers out there have uh, not had to buy 2x licensing because they've gone to AWS. So that's where we do the optimization license assessment to demonstrate to you how those license entitlements map to AWS. So let's walk through really quick the licensing models that AWS offers us. There's a server-based licensing model, right? There's processor licenses, named user plus licenses, and then the EULAs. I'm sorry, the Oracle licensing models I meant to say. So as you guys know, on your physical hardware, there's a document called the core factor table. So if we're running an x86, I count the total number of cores, multiply it by a 0.5 multiplier, and then that's the number of Oracle processor licenses that I need. So what's a processor license? It's based on the number of processors or cores where Oracle programs are installed and or running on a particular device, right? So you have to license. It requires licensing all the cores and applying the core factor table that we just spoke about. The other model is a named user plus. There are minimums based on the products. Or for database, it's a 25-to-1 minimum, but you have to count the actual number of individuals or devices that are authorized to access the Oracle software from a multiplexing front end. And we can go deeper into that, but regardless, there are minimums on the named user plus for certain hardware. And some customers may have a EULA, a PULA, or variations of that. So we'd want to look at that. If you have one of those, how to best ensure that what we're doing with those unlimited agreements, how do they transfer into AWS? If you're an ISV with prop hosting language in your contracts, can I run those in AWS? We'll have to evaluate that and look at that. So there's numerous different types of Oracle contracts that we've encountered in our history with trying to migrate this stuff, so we can help you. So Oracle licensing on AWS in a shared host virtualized environment. So this is your EC2's instance types, we'll call it predominantly, right? Where you count the number of vCPUs and not the physical cores. There's a great document you guys can Google it called Licensing Oracle in the Cloud document, and it walks you through everything that I'm about to articulate to you here. So in the shared model, we count the vCPUs rather than physical cores and simply count number of vCPUs on the EC2. And the vCPU calculation was very simple. Do we have hyperthreading enabled or not? That's the key question. If hyperthreading, without hyperthreading, it's one proc is equal to one vCPU. With hyperthreading, two vCPUs equals one proc license. And then there's a core factor exception, right? Obviously, if we want to apply it to a physical, we'll talk about that on the next dedicated instance size. We'll talk about that next. The EC2 instances generally cannot be counted towards unlimited license agreements unless you have a provision in your ULA that says, in the event that I migrate this stuff, I'm allowed to count 6 months of usage in public cloud or something like that. So when we go to certify, if we ever want to certify and get off of a ULA, there's certain rules that we want to look at in the ULA to ensure that we're allowed to count whatever we've deployed on AWS in a shared host environment, and it'll count towards our certification. So we can look at that. So it'll depend on your ULA contract for that. What's another model? Well, you can put it on a dedicated host, dedicated instance and a dedicated host, right? So this is hardware. You have a dedicated instance. It runs on a single tenant hardware. It's dedicated to you, and it's physical server. So wait, there's a physical server that we get on AWS? Yep. You can decide on those types of scenarios of, hey, do I license vCPUs or do I license proc like I normally did with the core factor table? The beautiful thing is we get to choose what makes the most sense for us, right? The cool thing about this is on a dedicated instance, you can restart on different physical hosts, but on dedicated hosts, you'll always launch on the same physical hardware, ensuring consistency. So that's a little bit of difference between the dedicated instance versus host, right? So instance placement, licensing advantages, etc. We'll guide you guys through whether dedicated instance makes sense or dedicated host, and walk you through the pros and cons of each one. If you're inclined to use this type of model for licensing purposes or specific workload requirement purposes. And the newest kid on the block is a new service from AWS and Oracle called Oracle Database at AWS. Let's say we talked about all that, and you guys are like, yeah, but I need my Exadata. I need Oracle RAG. That's the only way these Oracle workloads are going to run because of our particular business requirements. Not a problem. We can run Oracle RAG, real application clusters, and that Oracle technology in AWS now with the same user front end interface, etc., but with the power of an Exadata. Now you can do a dedicated Exadata, um, uh, or you can do autonomous in this as well. You take advantage of the dedicated autonomous database in Oracle on this. The licensing model changes though. We changed to a concept called an eCPU. So an eCPU, if you reference that frequently asked questions thing on eCPU, it says 8 eCPUs may be activated for each supported processor license of an Oracle database. So and 16 eCPUs for supported processor licenses of standard edition. So it is documented, and we get a concept of eCPU get introduced as a result of Oracle DB at AWS. So what are the advantages of this model? This is an enhanced license model, meaning you're essentially getting an Exadata in AWS, and with that, Oracle grants additional license entitlements that you might have been paying for before. But now that you're moving to cloud, you don't need to putting it on Oracle DB at AWS. I don't need to pay for TDE. I don't need to pay for real application testing, data masking and subsetting, DIAG and tuning, and I also get Exadata columnar cache feature. There's a document, Exadata service FAQ, that articulates that these BOIO licenses are not needed because I'm going to run it on Oracle DB at AWS. On that note, I'm going to pass it over to Jim.
Emma here. Thank you so much. So when we think about deploying an Oracle database, either on-prem or in AWS, obviously we have to think about the infrastructure that's appropriate for that deployment or that set of deployments where Oracle will run. And oftentimes storage might not be the first thing that comes to mind when thinking about the infrastructure stack. One thing I want to try to convey today that choosing the right storage, whether it's on-prem or in AWS, obviously we're focused on deploying in AWS today, but choosing the right storage, it does matter and it is important. And if you think about that infrastructure stack and the smarter that infrastructure stack is, the smarter that the application and database that you're hosting on that infrastructure stack is going to be. And I'll get into what I mean on that in just a little bit. But basically, what I want to introduce first is this notion that we worked with NetApp about almost 7 years ago now to meet with a bunch of customers and understand kind of what they wanted from their storage providers in the cloud. These were NetApp customers and non-NetApp customers. And for anybody who doesn't know NetApp, they've been in the enterprise storage space for about 30 years now. The company was launched back in the mid 90s, and they've been a leader in the enterprise storage space ever since. So as we worked with NetApp, as we talked to customers, they told us that they would like to see a fully featured, fully capable implementation of the NetApp storage that ran on premises in AWS. So we worked together for almost 2 years in an engineering effort, and we brought the product to market in September of 2021. We called it Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP, and it is in fact built with NetApp technology, namely the ONTAP software stack, and we built it in tandem with NetApp. So the idea here was to build something that looked exactly like the on-premises implementation of ONTAP in AWS. So we wanted this notion of a complete, fully managed NetApp ONTAP file system supporting both block access and file access to give you complete agility, complete flexibility. If you like your databases to run on a block protocol, that's great. If you like your databases to run over NFS, perhaps, that's also great. FSx for NetApp ONTAP supports both of those protocols or both of those access methods, just like NetApp ONTAP on premises does. So you get all the features and capabilities of ONTAP that have been running on premises for decades. You get those in AWS as well with the simplicity and, of course, the agility and scale of an AWS service and the AWS cloud itself. Let me talk a little bit more about some of the features and capabilities in ONTAP for anybody who may not know. I mentioned flexibility in terms of accessibility on the front end, either file or block protocols. Very high performance. And we've run a number of benchmarks, and we're very comfortable that FSx for NetApp ONTAP delivers high performance. We're also very comfortable that it's highly resilient. And so I'll talk about some of these features on the slide you're seeing now in just a second. But just from an introductory perspective, things like being able to create backups in seconds, recoveries in minutes. So if we look at what DBAs and folks administering applications and database tend to want, they want high availability and durability. You see in that second column there. They also want enterprise grade performance. So they don't want to bring Oracle databases or any other workloads to the cloud and have them perform more poorly or not as well as they did on premises. So obviously we've done a lot of tuning, we've done a lot of performance testing and analysis with FSx for ONTAP in AWS, and we're completely comfortable and confident that it's high performance, that it does deliver the sub-millisecond latencies and very high IOPS, which I'll talk about a little bit later in terms of numbers. So customers like Pearson, which Mihir mentioned earlier, their time to test and prove to themselves that they could bring those Oracle workloads. And by the way, this is their CRM and ERP applications. It's the applications they run their business on. Pearson and others were very comfortable and confident in bringing those workloads to AWS after they did a little bit of proof of concept testing on their own. So starting in the middle there, performance is critical. Moving to the left, high availability and durability, of course. The notion that my storage has to always be available and be always on. It has to be able to fail over between regions if I so desire and I want to configure it that way. It has to be able to replicate on its own over on the far left there. So with ONTAP and FSx for NetApp ONTAP, it has built-in storage replication, a capability known as Snap Mirror. And what that allows customers to do is set up block-based replication across AWS regions. So as blocks in the underlying database change, those blocks and only those blocks get replicated to another region for purposes of failover. And what we sometimes find is that customers will use that destination, which was designed originally for use in a disaster recovery scenario. They will build their development and test environment in that other region. There's a capability on board ONTAP, and so of course it's in FSx for ONTAP as well, in which a customer can create a clone of an environment that hosts a database. So you have that database residing on FSx for ONTAP, and you can very quickly, in fact, in a matter of minutes, you can take and make copies of those databases and operationalize those databases. So when you think about what your disaster recovery copy is often doing, it's doing exactly nothing unless and until you have a disaster. So why not use that DR copy to feed your development and test environment in that second region if it makes sense for you? So you can leave that disaster recovery replication in flight, and while that remains in flight, you can make copies of those disaster recovery replicas, and you can clone your databases on that remote end for purposes of development or test or training or whatever you might need to do with those copies. Now let's get over to the last two columns on the right. I kind of touched on this earlier, but this notion that you could create a backup in seconds and a recovery in minutes, this is a game changer. And it has been, ever since ONTAP supported this capability decades ago. The idea that I can use an online snapshot, it can be database consistent. To create that snapshot takes literally a matter of seconds. And to recover from that snapshot, more importantly, takes only minutes. And recoveries are always done in a sort of a state of what would you say, panic, right? And they tend to be done in off hours oftentimes when people might have been woken up to perform that recovery. So this notion that I can perform this recovery really, really quickly, and the fire in my hair as I'm doing that recovery, put that out as quickly as possible. That's one of the real strengths of ONTAP, and one of the reasons why customers, even though they may not know ONTAP or may not use ONTAP on-prem, when they bring their Oracle and even SQL and other SAP HANA, any type of database or other critical workload, even customers not using NetApp ONTAP on-prem are adopting FSx for NetApp ONTAP in AWS because it provides these capabilities. We don't have another storage service in AWS that provides these capabilities that I've just walked you through. EBS doesn't do it. None of our other storage services do it. So really, really interesting things can be done with FSx for NetApp ONTAP that we simply can't do in AWS with any other storage service. Lastly, I want to hit on this cost-effective storage silo over here on the far right-hand side. You might think it's strange that customers can simply, choose the right storage solution and actually reduce their overall cost of implementation, but it's an actual fact. Companies are telling us that they can not only back up and recover faster, they're not only getting, in some cases, better performance than they got on-prem based on what they've decided to architect, but they're also seeing a lower total cost of ownership associated with deploying in the cloud. Why is that? Because of the pay-go capability. I only deploy what I need, and I only deploy it when I need it. I don't have to pre-provision. I don't have to buy 3 years ahead. I don't have to worry about having latent capacity, whether it be compute or storage on the shelf. I can provision that and spin that up only when I need it, and I can maintain my costs that way. There's one other thing that's important to touch on here for our customers that have deployed either compression or deduplication for their database environments. We don't tend to see a tremendous response to deduplication, by the way, for databases, but compression usually works very well for Oracle and other databases. And so we're seeing customers report much lower costs when they turn compression on. They might have come from a storage solution on-prem that didn't support compression, perhaps. Sometimes it happens. Or they might have even come from EBS in AWS. The workload was already running in AWS. They've decided to move it from EBS to FSx for ONTAP. They turn on compression, and they might see their overall storage costs go down as much as 40%, as you see on this slide. So obviously, your mileage varies based on your deployment, but I'm confident in saying that we are seeing customers meet their performance requirements, meet their TCO requirements, and be able to do things quicker, faster, and with higher levels of agility in AWS than they were doing them in the past on premises. With that, Mihir, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you, Jim. No, that was a great summary on the capabilities of uh, FSx and NetApp. Oh, sorry. Let me go back. So, what does it all mean, right? How do we take advantage of all of the stuff on AWS, right? So, it starts with the OLA. Let us discover, assess, design, and optimize the right AWS architecture for you. Uh, how much is it going to cost? Nothing. Free. AWS and apps, we have, because we're a partner of AWS's, we will perform this assessment for you, funded by AWS for free. It's about valued at about $10,000. We'll do not only the licensing, we'll also do the storage assessment for you and show you how to take advantage of all the great features that Jim just talked about, and making sure that your Oracle estate is licensed and designed appropriately for AWS. So we will give you a true total cost of ownership and what does it look like to run these enterprise workloads on AWS. We'll give you a migration roadmap. We'll use our proprietary tools to help accelerate some of that assessment, as well as if you decide to move forward with the actual migration. We'll show you that. We'll give you an executive briefing document, um, uh, and we'll review it with not only apps associates, if you want to hear about it from the Oracle and AWS specialists, to make sure that this makes sense for you and your enterprise, please give us the opportunity to show you how you can also take advantage of the great capabilities of Snap Clone, Snap Mirror, etc., to accelerate your Oracle workloads on AWS. Let's walk through a key architecture, a real life example that's happening today. For those of you that are probably aware, there's a recent security bulletin, CVE, released by Oracle for those customers that are running Oracle e-business suite. I'll give you the doc ID. If you're not aware of it, please go reference it. It's doc ID 3106344.1. So we have a lot of customers that are running their mission critical Oracle ERPs like e-business suite on AWS. This is a sample reference architecture of that type of environment running on AWS. In case of e-business suite, we're able to take advantage of those capabilities of Snap Mirror, Snap Clone, etc., to literally accelerate the testing of that security vulnerability from hours or days, from a cloning perspective, down to minutes. We're able to do that because of the FSxN capabilities Jim just highlighted to us. So let's walk through this architecture really quickly. We'll go from the bottom up. You have a EC2 database in the primary region, all supported by a FSxN storage array at the bottom, right? So with that, we're able to then use SnapMirror into a DR region for that environment for data guard or whatnot. With Oracle eBusiness Suite, we're able to leverage FSxN for shared AppleTop capabilities, right? So you have multiple app nodes, an internal app node, an external app node, etc. But we can leverage that FSxN to literally support multiple application servers within AWS for the eBusiness Suite shared AppleTop. No other AWS service is able to do that. Not EFS, not Elastic Block Storage, etc. We leverage FSxN, if for nothing else, at least the shared AppleTop in eBusiness Suite. Now, with that entire architecture, we're able to take advantage of the cloning capabilities for customers to replicate this down into dev test, like Jim was talking about, right? We do that in minutes. I refer to that as the ability to address these types of security vulnerabilities faster than I ever can if I was on terrestrial infrastructure. Not only that, the performance benefits we see in this architecture with the NetApp storage and EC2 gives leadership and business what I refer to as golden time. If I can take a process, a concurrent manager job, a close cycle, the ability to get closed down from, let's say, 24 hours down into 18, 16, I guarantee you your controller, your CFO will listen. They are interested in how we can create what I call golden time to allow them to do better analysis of your quarterly results before they're presented to Wall Street and things like that. The leaderships and the executives will certainly appreciate that. How are we able to give them golden time? We're able to give them golden time by leveraging the AWS services we were talking about with EC2, with FSxN, with the IOPS, the throughputs, et cetera, that are available to us to speed up those processes in a way that's not been possible in the past. Because every time a new generation of a server or compute comes up, we can simply swap it out and adopt it in AWS within minutes. We leverage one of our standard maintenance windows. So these are the capabilities from air quotes golden time that we're able to give our customers. The ability to respond to security events in real time faster than they were able to do, all leveraging the capabilities that we were talking about here today. On that note, Jim, how does this compare from a price perspective, you mentioned, the capabilities, but how does this FSXN compare with all these capabilities of Snap Mirror, Snap Clone, et cetera, that from a pricing and throughput and et cetera, it sounds expensive. Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So want to make sure we don't convey that it is expensive because it's not. So great question that you posed. Let's talk through that. Before I go there, a couple things I want to call out that I probably should have mentioned earlier. First one being, I alluded to this, but I want to make it, abundantly clear. What we've done here in building FSX for ONTAP is bringing NetApp's ONTAP software to AWS, and we're running that on AWS infrastructure. So we were able to work with NetApp to optimize and tune on the ONTAP software for the AWS infrastructure that it's running on to make sure that it's as optimized and tuned as possible for performance. And so want to make sure that's well understood. And then from a resiliency perspective, excuse me, I mentioned earlier that I would come back to this. What you see here in this reference architecture is on the left-hand side, you see what we call a multi-AZ deployment, where we've got in a single AWS region, we've got two AZs with the infrastructure split across those AZs. As you can see, we've got the storage represented right in the middle. It actually spans both of those AZs and has the ability to fail over between those AZs. Obviously, we've got EC2 instances on both sides as well. In the case of a storage failover, we've got synchronous replication embedded in FSX for ONTAP between those two AZs. So if everything in AZ1 on this diagram on the far left were to fail through some combination of host clustering, Oracle intelligence, as well as FSXN intelligence, everything would fail over to the other AZ in that same region, and no IOs would be lost. Obviously, there would be a pause that would occur while that failover was occurring, but no IOs would be lost, no data would be lost because of that synchronous replication occurring within the FSX engine. So that would probably be your production deployment. Over on the right-hand side, you can see it labeled DR region. That's a single AZ FSX for ONTAP deployment, meaning that the entire infrastructure is running within a single AZ, obviously, within that DR region. So oftentimes we find customers deploy in this fashion, multi-AZ for production and single AZ for DR and or development and test. So that's one way to answer Mihir's question that customers control their costs is they choose the right infrastructure based on their resiliency profile, based on their desire for recoverability, and they will deploy either multi-AZ or single AZ. Sometimes what we also see is a customer will deploy, instead of a multi-AZ deployment in production, they will deploy two single AZ deployments, and they will do replication at the database level and or replication between two FSX for ONTAP instances using that Snap Mirror feature that I talked about earlier. So there's multiple ways to design this infrastructure. And cost is always a vector to consider when designing one's infrastructure. With respect to the actual components that are priced within the FSX for ONTAP deployment, you have what's called an SSD tier or a high performance tier and a capacity pool tier or a low performance tier. So based on the amount of storage on a gigabyte per month basis, customers will be billed for only what they're using with respect to the capacity pool tier. On the SSD tier, that's actually pre-allocated, and customers will be billed based on what they've allocated. So you might allocate 100 terabytes. That's just that arbitrary number I picked. You might allocate 10 terabytes. You would pay for those 10 terabytes on the SSD tier. And then to the extent that you're also using the capacity pool tier, perhaps to store your snapshots, for example, you would be billed based on the amount of storage you're using in that capacity pool tier. So think of it as a charge for the disk you're using, the disk capacity. There's also an IOPS charge associated with those disks. And then lastly, there's a throughput capacity charge, which is the amount of front-end throughput that you need to service your database measured in megabytes per second. So we talked earlier about our friends at Apps Associates doing an assessment. Some of the things they learn in that assessment are how much capacity do you need and how much performance do you need. And Mihir mentioned that they would design and give you a directional business case which represents the infrastructure you would need to deploy and utilize in AWS. So part and parcel of that is how much capacity and what would that capacity cost, and how much throughput or performance and what would that throughput cost. Lastly, if customers choose to do backups, which many do, not all, I would say most do, actually, if they choose to do AWS-driven backups using the AWS backup capability, then there is a separate charge for those backup copies. So let's talk about data protection here just for a second. We've talked earlier about snapshots and replication, which are on board FSx. There's also this ability to create that second outboard copy, if you will, or perhaps a third outboard copy using AWS backup. You could, of course, use a third-party utility there as well, Cohesity, Rubrik, etc. So that would be up to you in terms of how you wanted to govern those backups. Everything that you know about using RMAN with Oracle for, creating backups, all of that applies if you're running in AWS and if you're using FSx. Nothing changes in terms of your Oracle deployment if you don't want it to, with respect to bringing it to AWS. So that's the pricing vector here. Was there another question here, or is that it?
Yeah. So are there any limitations? I haven't seen any, but I was wondering if you've seen any limitations in terms of throughput, performance, et cetera, with running large enterprise workloads like Oracle databases on FSxN.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have not seen any limitations. No, that again is a function of the design. So choosing the right design. There is if anybody's interested in a minimum deployment size with FSx, it's 1 TB. So we do have a minimum FSx for ONTAP file system size. That's 1 TB. From there, it can grow up to effectively, there's really no limit to the size of an FSxN file system. There is a limit to the amount of SSD you can deploy, and that's capped in a given file system at 1 PB. So don't see a lot of 1 PB databases out there. So I feel comfortable in saying we have, the variability to configure, the right deployment model for any customer, regardless of what they're trying to do. And then from a throughput capacity perspective, it ranges from as low as 128 megabytes per second up to 6 GB per second per deployment. We can actually scale that even wider if we stack multiple FSx file systems together, side by side by side. We do have customers with very large databases that might choose to shard them or segment them across FSxN deployments, in which case we have scale up to as high as 72 GB per second. You don't see a lot of databases that require that kind of throughput or that kind of capacity. And that's why I'm comfortable in saying that we can handle what, probably 99.999% of our customers want to bring to us.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah. I mean, for all those reasons and more, this is why this is our default reference architecture for large enterprise Oracle workloads running on AWS. I mean, what we do at Apps and the capabilities we're able to provide our customers that we support with the Oracle database and the stacks, we're able to do that more efficiently and faster and stuff as a result of FSxN on AWS. So thank you for that insight and that details. So if anyone out there wants to have a discussion specifically around your Oracle migration needs, please feel free to reach out to me, schedule one-on-one, let us know. My email and number are out there. Please feel free to give me a ring and contact me. And we have a tremendous amount of assets on our website. Please feel free to go and reference that. You can also find us on the AWS Marketplace if you just look up Apps Associates and OLA. So there's numerous ways you can get a hold of us. I hope you found this webinar informative and look forward to talking to you guys soon. Thank you.